Their spine-chilling true tales of sinister hauntings revealed secrets of the cursed and unexplained. The moment Sarah stepped into her new house, a chill crept through the air, as if the walls were holding their breath. She tried to shake it off, telling herself it was just a draft coming from the ancient windows, but as the day faded, shadows stretched and twisted, dancing across the creaky wooden floors. Lucas, her 7-year-old son, giggled and ran into the expansive garden, blissfully unaware of the lurking shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of the past, shadows that were hungry for attention. After weeks of searching, she had finally found it, the perfect vintage home in a seemingly peaceful suburb of Ohio. The neighbors were friendly, the backyard sprawling with potential for weekend barbecues, and enough charm to make any mama feel right at home. Sarah had pictured birthday parties with balloons flying high and laughter echoing off the walls. But the setting sun transformed her dream into a canvas of dread. The first night, Sarah lay awake, convinced someone was in the house. Whispers cycled through the air, brushing against her ears, begging to be understood. She couldn't make out the words, but they coiled around her heart with a vice-like grip. It was just her imagination, she assured herself, so she clenched her eyes shut, seeking solace in sleep. Meanwhile, Lucas was deep in conversation, chattering away about his new friend, Benny. An imaginary friend, Sarah reminded herself, but it felt more like a warning, a malevolent secret creeping toward her sanity. Days turned into weeks, but the whispers grew louder, more distinct, and the shadows thickened in corners where light didn't dare to intrude. Flickering lights mirrored her escalating fear, dimming at her anxious thoughts. Cold drafts slithered through the hallways, clawing at her skin, sending her heart racing. Then the moment she stumbled into the attic was one she'd never forget. In a dusty box, she found a faded portrait of 2 children, innocent, wide-eyed, yet undeniably haunting. A newspaper clipping slipped out, detailing the mysterious disappearance of those very children decades ago. The knot in her stomach twisted painfully, as if the house itself was tightening its grip around her family. Dread seeped into her bones. In a bid for help, she confided in the neighbors, but their smiles felt hollow. The warmth vanished quickly as evasive answers replaced their once welcoming faces. An unsettling silence enveloped her as she realized they held secrets she could not imagine. When she called the police, their reassurances felt more like smokescreens, leaving her questioning every shadow, every creak of the floorboards. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She'd pushed her fears aside, dismissed them as ordinary relocation jitters, but Lucas's deepening connection with Benny began to terrify her. The games he spoke of were oddly specific. Hide and seek in dark corners, running through the garden at night where the shadows seemed to beckon. Tonight, she could almost hear Benny whispering her son's name, a hissing sound that felt far too alive and close. And just like that, she realized Benny was no longer just a figment of imagination. The truth loomed before her like a storm on the horizon, thick and suffocating. With the walls of the house closing in, Sarah felt the heavy hand of despair press against her chest. She had to act, to face whatever darkness gripped her household. And just as the whispers reached a deafening crescendo, the realization hit her. Benny was more than a friend. He was a fragment of the house's sorrow, lurking beyond her comprehension, seeking a reunion that could cost her everything. Out of choices and time, Sarah stood on the precipice of the tenebrous unknown, knowing they were not alone. The house was alive, and it was hungry. Would she dare confront the ghosts, or would she allow her family to slip into the shadows forever? The air was thick with tension as Sarah stood frozen in place. The shadows warped around her, and Benny's whispers wrapped around her mind like ivy, pulling her toward the dim hallway. She could feel Lucas's presence behind her, innocent and unaware, yet the bond he forged with that childhood figure twisted her gut. "We need to go to bed, Lucas," she said, her voice trembling. "No, Mommy," Lucas insisted, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Benny wants to play. Just a little longer." Panic gripped her heart. Was it the child's innocent wish or something darker? The chill in the air intensified, closing in around them. "Benny doesn't seem like a good friend," she said gently, kneeling to meet her son's gaze. "Maybe we could say good-night to Benny and come back in the morning." His laughter echoed unnaturally, a sound too foreign for the moment. "Good night, Mommy!" Lucas shouted, looking back toward the shadows, where an unseen force seemed to tug at him. The lights flickered violently, plunging the home into cataclysmic half-light. Yet Lucas's smile remained bright. The feeling of dread deepened. "Lucas!" But the child was already moving toward the hallway, eager to chase whispers that tickled his ears. Before Sarah could reach him, he vanished into the darkness. "Lucas!" she screamed, her heart racing. She strained to hear any sign of him, her breaths coming in shallow gasps, overwhelming terror pushing down on her chest. With a surge of fear, she dashed into the murky hallway. The shadows enveloped her, thick and suffocating. Every corner seemed to conceal nightmares waiting to pounce, and echoes of laughter bounced off the walls, dancing maddeningly in the tangled air. The chilling realization hit her. She wasn't just searching for her son, she was stepping into the web of a different reality, the realm where Benny lived, the not-so-imaginary friend who beckoned with promises laced in darkness. As she ran, the air grew colder, the walls exhaling a breath of despair. "Lucas," she called again, her voice a fragile thread in a world drowning in shadows. There was no answer, only the suffocating silence that engulfed her. In a sudden burst of clarity, she recalled the faded portrait in the attic, the tragic faces of those lost children. Had they come to take Lucas, to claim him as one of their own? A dim light flickered far down the corridor, luring her like a moth to a flame. Hesitation gripped her, but desperation propelled her forward. She needed to find him. As she stepped closer, a voice, a child's voice, floated through the air, twisted and bittersweet, pulling at her heart. "Mommy, come play with us." The chill coursed through her veins. The unmistakable laughter echoed, now joined by others, haunting her. Anguish and curiosity battled for dominance within her. "Stay back!" she shouted into the dark, her heart pounding in her ears. But the shadows thickened, and from them faces began to emerge, pale, wide-eyed and pleading. The lost children danced with Benny, pulling Lucas deeper into their realm, inviting him to join their eternal game. "No!" Sarah screamed, reaching out, her trembling hands grasping at the air, trying to bridge the abyss. The darkness upped its intensity, a swirling tempest of dread, and the temperature plummeted. The house shuddered as if in response, the walls weeping sorrow. Then a chilling realization clawed its way into her mind. Fighting back wouldn't be enough. To save Lucas, she needed to understand Benny, to confront the pain that bound him. What sorrow had this house borne? What tragedy lay buried in its roots? With every ounce of courage, she took a step forward, deeper into the dark. "I won't lose you, Lucas. We're in this together." Just as the shadows lunged, she felt a cold hand clasp her ankle, a child's grip, firm yet pleading. A decisive moment arrived. Would she embrace the darkness and confront the echoes of a time long past, seeking the truth, or would she succumb to the sinister embrace the house offered? As terror loomed larger, she had to make a choice, before it was too late. What answers awaited her in Benny's world, and would they be enough to free her son? The cold hand tightened around Sarah's ankle, a grip both pleading and insistent. She stumbled, nearly falling, but the force swept her along, dragging her deeper into the shadows. Panic surged through her. This wasn't just any child. It felt as if she were being pulled by something ancient and sorrowful. "Lucas!" she cried out, her voice cracking, desperation lacing every syllable. The darkness thickened, swallowing the light from the flickering bulbs above. The walls seemed to close in, each one a mausoleum whispers had long since forgotten, until now. "Mummy, come play." The voice echoed again, playful yet sinister. It thrummed through her bones, the shadows twisted, taking form, and she stumbled into a dim room that felt like a grave for lost souls. The air was stale, dampened by time, and the walls dripped with darkness that felt alive. A low, disembodied laughter filled the air, dancing around her ears, causing her to shiver despite the overwhelming chill. In the center, a small circle formed, a playground of ethereal light that showcased the spectral children swirling around, laughter mingling with the whispering winds. "Lucas!" she shouted once more, forcing her way through the throng of giggling shadows. One child, with hollow eyes and a mouth stretched into an unnatural smile, turned to her. "You have to play," it whispered, the voice like breaking glass. "He'll never come back if you don't." A wave of nausea hit her. What did that mean? "You must understand." Another voice chimed in, softer now. A girl with starry eyes stood at the edge of the light, beckoning her closer. "He's ours now." The realization pierced her heart like a knife. They weren't merely children lost to time. They were conduits, trapped in this eternal darkness, feeding off the joy and innocence of the living. And now Lucas was being drawn into their web, through Benny, through their decrepit playhouse, a haunting echo of lost potential that hung heavily in the air. "Get away from him!" she screamed, lunging forward, ignoring the icy stares of the forgotten children. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by an unsettling silence. The shadows recoiled, but deep within, she saw them, faces of the kids from the attic, twisted by sorrow, eternally yearning for a connection they could never achieve. A force pulled her back, as if the house feared her revelation, but she was not done. "I understand your pain," she shouted, her voice echoing against the walls, scrambling to find the words that might pull her son back. "You just want someone to play, but I won't let you take him." An ear-splitting shriek erupted from a corner, unleashing a torrent of dread. The faces of the children morphed into expressions of rage and despair. "We want him," they wailed, their voices rising like a hurricane, overwhelming her senses. "You don't understand," Sarah shouted, her throat raw. "You were once loved. You don't have to be lost anymore." The shadows trembled, hesitating. Perhaps, just perhaps, they were not entirely lost. But then Benny's figure emerged from the haze, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling promise. "Come play, Sarah," he said, the words curling around her, paralyzing her with fear. "Join us. Forever." The thought sent her mind racing. "I have to make them see," she thought, gripping onto the last threads of hope. They were kids like Lucas. They need to remember. But as she pushed forward with courage, the shadows surged, consuming every ounce of light, every bit of warmth. The pleas of the children faded into haunting echoes, melding into Benny's predatory grin. "Mommy!" She finally heard Lucas cry, shrill and fearful. The sounds ignited something primal inside. She turned back to where he was, but the swirl of darkness spun wildly, and she could only see flickers of movement. Every second stretched painfully, and she knew time was running out. A final flicker of hope formed within her as determination surged through the haze. "I'll get you back, I promise," she breathed harshly, fighting through the din. But the shadows were hungry, and the laughter echoed louder, drowning out her promises. Would they release him, or would they consume him along with her? As despair set in, something deep in the dark stirred. Would she unravel the twisted tale Benny had woven, or would she remain a prisoner alongside her child? All while the darkness waited, eager for a choice, a chance to take what it craved. The darkness churned violently around Sarah, almost alive. She could feel its breath, cold, clammy, as it wrapped around her throat. Panic clawed at her, a tightness in her chest, making it difficult to breathe. "Lucas!" she screamed again, her voice lost in the chaos. "Mummy, come play." The sing-song voice danced mockingly above the din, taunting her as shadows swirled into grotesque shapes. It wasn't just the children she feared anymore, it was that pervasive darkness itself, almost sentient, as if it was tasting her fear. She could barely think straight. "I have to find him," she murmured to herself, clutching her head, trying to chase away fragments of horrifying thoughts. Each moment felt stretched, the seconds grinding against her willingness to fight. The laughter was incessant, a high-pitched cacophony rising and falling, echoing inside her skull. Suddenly the children fell silent, and the shadows drew back like a curtain being pulled aside. In that eerie moment of calm, she saw him. Lucas stood near the periphery, bathed in a faint silver glow that seemed to flatter the darkness pressing in all around him. He looked frightened, tiny against the overwhelming gloom, the innocence in his eyes betraying an innocence already touched by dread. "Lucas!" She lunged toward him, a desperate mother trying to bridge the chasm of despair, but a wall of shadow surged, slamming against her chest, forcing her to stumble back. "No!" she gasped, struggling against the invisible force. "I'm coming!" "Mummy, help me!" Lucas cried, his voice tremulous, but even through the terror she caught something else, an essence of longing that resonated with her heart. Impossibly, a flicker of understanding shot through her. These children, eternally lost, were not entirely devoid of humanity. "You were loved!" she shouted, her voice strong despite the odds. "You were all loved! You must know that!" But as soon as the words left her lips, the air shifted, electric with hostility. The children shrieked, their voices splintering into a chorus of anguish. "We want to play! We want him!" They howled, their hollow eyes glaring at her, seeing not her promise but only the rejection the living offered. Sarah's hands trembled, uncertainty clawing at her heart. She couldn't let them take Lucas, but could she fight against the agony of those lost souls? They only wanted what she'd taken for granted, a fleeting moment of joy, the warmth of connection. "What do I do?" she whispered, backing away from the encroaching shadows. She could still see Lucas, but he was slipping. More shadows were wrapping around his legs, pulling him down into a pit of despair. "Join us!" Benny's voice rang out again, smooth and sinister. "We can all play together, forever." "No!" she shouted back, grounding herself. "I won't give in. I won't let you take him. He's not yours." The shadows howled in fury, a gust of wind swirling violently towards her. She was surrounded, barely able to stand in the chaos, but she could feel Lucas's gaze still locked onto her. She took a deep breath, fighting through terror and despair. Then she remembered the attic, those children who were once vibrant, but now reduced to whispering echoes. "If you were loved, then you can love again," she cried out, her voice shaking but clear. Remember what it felt like to laugh, to play. You don't have to be trapped here." In response, the shadows flickered, brightening just for a heartbeat. It was a spark, a stubborn ember of hope, and she clung to it. But just as quickly as it appeared, another wave of darkness crashed down, threatening to extinguish it. The shadows began to advance, and the children moved as one, their collective energy nearly suffocating. "Please," Sarah pleaded, heart hammering. Her focus was on Lucas, wanting to pull him from the abyss. Desperation surged inside her, and she shouted, "Choose love! Choose to remember!" But just as she felt the tide turning, Benny lunged forward, eyes glinting with malice. "Love is for the living, Sarah. Come join us, or he will be lost forever." With each step he took, the atmosphere grew heavier, her thoughts scattering under the weight of despair. What could she do? As the shadows tightened their grip, Sarah felt as if the ceiling itself was closing in. With desperately racing thoughts, she wondered if she was too late to save Lucas. Could she really pull him back from the brink, or would she let the darkness take him too? It was a heartbeat decision, but the darkness was patient, waiting for her to choose. The shrieking shadows shifted like tide pools, and it felt like the very air congealed around Sarah. Each breath felt like it was a battle against the oppressive darkness closing in on all sides. Panic tightened around her throat again, but she couldn't afford to falter, not now. Lucas was still there, just a breath away. "Mommy!" His voice echoed, thin and trembling, a haunting melody in the midst of chaos. Sarah clenched her fists, summoning whatever strength she had left. "I'm coming, Lucas!" she shouted, hoping her voice could cut through the suffocating darkness. She pushed against the shadows, willing herself to move, to reach him before he was consumed. But it was like pushing against a wall of ice. The shadows twisted, forming hands that pulled her back unbearably, gripping at her limbs like vices. She could feel the cold seeping into her bones, the despair of so many lost souls swirling around her. "Please, just let me through," she screamed, desperation giving weight to her words. But Benny was there, his crooked smile and hollow eyes piercing the darkness. "You think you can save him?" he taunted, circling her like a predator. "You can't save what you don't have the strength to hold. What do you want from us?" The words slipped out hushed, as though the shadows themselves could hear her plea. "To play," he echoed, his voice dripping with malice. "You see, Sarah, there's a game we have, and you're the star. To join us, all you have to do is give in to that fear. But no one ever really wants to play." His laughter rang out, rough and chilling, blending with the soft whispers of the children behind him. Fear surged through Sarah, but she whispered affirmations to herself, drawing on the flicker of hope she felt earlier. "Lucas, remember when we used to draw together? You loved coloring the sun with a smile on its face. Do you remember?" In the whirlwind of shadows, the glimmer of Lucas's light pulsed, flickering as her words penetrated the darkness. For a brief moment, the echoes faded away, almost as if they were pondering her words. "Mommy!" Lucas cried out again, his voice pushing through the wall of chaos. A surge of determination flooded through her. "You loved being loved, Lucas. You can choose to come back." She didn't know if he could hear her over the din of the shadows, but she kept shouting, clinging to that ember of hope. Benny snarled, rage contorting his face. "You think he has a choice? You think they can feel that warmth again after living in darkness for so long?" The eeriness of his words wrapped around Sarah like a steel band. A cold sweat broke out against her skin, and she staggered, almost losing her footing. What if he was right? What if the shadows had claimed Lucas for good? Suddenly, the air pulsed with energy. The shadows surged backward briefly, and Sarah took a chance. "Together, Lucas, we can fight back. Tell them you want to come home." But the shadows lunged again, and the darkness screeched in protest. Sarah was losing ground. The sheer force of their collective despair crashed over her in waves, dragging her along, closer to the brink of surrender. She felt their pain, their longing for connection. "No," she roared defiantly. "You don't get to decide our fate. You're nothing but a nightmare." As she screamed that declaration, a ripple broke through the darkness. Light surged from her heart, a raw, bright essence that pushed back against the shadows. Benny snarled in confusion, and the children paused, their whispering drowning under the fierce light. But just as hope began to bloom, she heard Lucas's voice, softer now, almost lost. "Mommy, help!" In that instant, doubt flashed through her mind. Was the light enough? Was her love strong enough to pull him back? Just as the shadows thrashed wildly around them, something warped the air. A silhouette appeared just behind Benny, a fleeting glimpse of the lost children who had once stood vibrant. Had they come to help, or were they there to further drag her into the depths? A piercing chill shot through her. As Sarah looked into the abyss before her, a new truth dawned in her heart. Fear was a cage, but love had the power to break it. "Hold on, Lucas! I'm coming!" She forced herself to move through the surge of shadows, but as she lunged forward, she felt the darkness clawing at her, pulling her back towards the void. Would she reach him before the abyss swallowed them whole? Or would they be forever lost in this nightmare? A creeping shadow loomed behind her, whispering promises of eternal darkness. Sarah faced it head-on, heart racing, not knowing what was to come. But she could not turn back now. Would love really be enough? The shadows surged, twisting around her, and everything turned to dark. The darkness throbbed around Sarah, stretching like an angry sea, each wave crashing against her senses. She fought against the icy grasp, feeling the remnants of hope flicker like a dying flame. The shrieks and whispers twisted into a cacophony of anguish, drowning her in despair. "Please, Lucas!" she cried, her voice catching. "Fight with me!" The shadows hesitated at her words, as if they were alive, torn between their appetite for fear and the sliver of love radiating from Sarah's heart. Moments felt like a decade, stretching thin as her resolve wavered. Memories of Lucas, the way he laughed, the way his eyes sparkled when he found joy, danced across her thoughts, illuminating her with a warmth that stood against the cold terror surrounding her. Benny's laughter pierced the air again, a sound like shattering glass. "So sweet," he taunted, stepping closer. "But love isn't enough here. You really think you can save him?" "Shut up!" she shouted, pushing through the disorienting swell of shadows, each step harder than the last. Her chest tightened. Was her defiance all in vain? "Lucas!" she called again, her voice barely more than a whisper now, each breath feeling like shards of glass in her throat. "You are stronger than this darkness." The shadows held tight, forming a twisted barrier, but she felt an energy, a heartbeat, a response from within. The flickering light pulsed, growing stronger, illuminating Lucas's fragile outline in the distance. "Mommy, I'm scared," he whimpered, and his small figure shivered as the shadows closed in. "I'm right here! Just hold on!" She reached out, but as she did, a dark tendril lashed out, wrapping around her wrist like a snake, squeezing with a force that demanded submission. Pain shot up her arm, and she gasped, feeling a wave of mistrust wash over her. Could the shadows drag her into their depth too? Benny's face twisted in glee, eyes wide, full of malice. "You think you'll save him? This is the moment of surrender. This is where despair wins." In that harrowing moment, part of her teetered on hopelessness, but the flicker of Lucas kept igniting her spirit. His trust in her fueled her fight. "Lucas, I believe in you. You have the strength to push them away. Remember our happy place where we can play?" The chaos fell momentarily silent, as if contemplating her words. For a split second the shadows withdrew, revealing the narrow space between them. "Together, just like we practiced," she shouted, heart pounding like thunder in her chest. Suddenly, the children's whispers grew louder, charging the air with an unsettling energy. Their figures flickered ominously, eyes bleak, faces marred by shadows. Yet there was something familiar about them. Were they lost souls, or echoes of those who had been claimed? "No," Benny hissed, anger flashing. "You can't take him. You'll find only despair." A tidal wave of darkness recoiled as Sarah summoned every ounce of courage within her. With each passing moment, she felt the grip on her mind loosen. "We will not give in." She felt their pain and sorrow, not as chains but as a challenge, a collective strength that could shatter their grip. The barriers around Lucas flickered, allowing a burst of brilliance to shine through. "Fight with me," she urged, her voice soaring above the cacophony. As her spirit surged, the shadows shrieked. Their cries echoed with the voices of the lost, children, adults, trapped souls who had succumbed to the darkness. In that cacophony, she saw the pain they endured, their fear. She began to understand. Was it enough to just fight for Lucas, or did they all need her help? The shadows lunged, desperate to reclaim their hold. Sarah reached deeper, wrapping her love around the tendrils, feeling the warmth seep into the cold, the light defying the abyss. But as the shadows pulled away, revealing the breadth of open space, an unsettling thought pierced her heart. What if she couldn't save them all? What if her fight was in vain? Benny's voice rang out once more, echoing in the void. You think bright colors and love can chase away the dark? Let's see if you're truly ready to play this time. As the ground trembled beneath her, the haunting laughter swirled around, growing louder. This was only the beginning. And just as she felt the last flickers of hope, the darkness surged forward. "Lucas!" she screamed as the shadows enveloped everything once more, threatening to erase them both. In that suffocating moment, a question echoed within her. Could love truly banish despair? Or was it just a game they were all doomed to lose? The shadows closed in, a suffocating whirlpool dragging Sarah deeper into a nightmare of despair. Every breath seemed to choke her, narrowing her vision until all she could see was a swirling blackness wrapped around her. The icy tendrils wrapped tighter, whispering twisted lies of failure in her ears, each word a dagger driven into her resolve. "Give in, Sarah." Benny's voice echoed like a distant thunder, reverberating through her skull. "You don't really think you can fight this? It's futile." Sarah squeezed her eyes shut, fighting against the rising tide of hopelessness. "No, I will not surrender." She clutched at the tendrils, desperate for a sense of control. Her pulse raced, a wild drum echoing the chaotic rhythm of despair all around her. Suddenly, the darkness shifted, almost as if the bond between her and Lucas could be seen, vibrating with a strange energy, lit by memories and love that pulsated between them. She could feel Lucas's fear echoing her own. "Mommy?" The sound quivered, laced with terror. The shadows shuddered at the connection, recoiling as if struck. In that brief moment, a flicker of her determination broke through. "We're coming, Lucas. Just hold on." With a newfound resolve coursing through her veins, Sarah pushed forward, her heart a blazing beacon shining into the void. She could feel the darkness gnashing at her heels, hungry and relentless. She gritted her teeth, focusing on the faint glimmer that was her son. There was a way out. She just had to claim it. "Feel me, Lucas. You can do it," she screamed, her voice unwavering despite the shadows clawing at her mind. And then, beyond the cacophony, she heard it. A melody, soft yet bold, their song of joy and laughter brushing against the edges of despair. A crack emerged in the engulfing darkness, a shimmering thread of light weaving through like a lifeline. This light became a pulsing rhythm, resonating with memories, sunny days, laughter in the park, the warmth of their home. But the shadows roared, forces of the forgotten fighting back with a vengeance. "You think those fleeting moments can save you?" they hissed, 1,000 voices swirling around. "You have no power here." The darkness surged ominously, a monstrous wave crashing against her. "Together!" she shouted, channeling every ounce of strength. The memories blossomed within her, rich and vibrant, a lifeline stretched toward Lucas. "Release him! You can't have him!" The potency of her love ignited, a blaze that threatened to sear through the shadow's hold. She felt the presence within Lucas surge, their bond igniting the pathway to freedom as he matched her strength. Just then, Benny's laughter warbled, cacophonous and unholy. "You're just lighting a candle in the dark. There's only more darkness to come." But the light surged, consuming the shadows as the laughter twisted into wails. The very fabric of despair fractured and splintered. She could feel Lucas fighting, his light expanding with an energy that felt like fireworks bursting in the night sky. Yet Sarah sensed a mounting dread. What if this isn't enough? What if... The thought settled like a stone in her stomach. Had they merely disturbed something ancient and primal? Benny's laughter morphed, twisting into a snarl. "You believe you've won? I'll show you what true despair is." Suddenly, the shadows darkened again, folding around them like a suffocating blanket. She gasped, panic surging like shockwaves. Sarah's heart raced, and as the darkness tightened its grip, she tightened her resolve. "Lucas, fight! We're almost there!" But the laughter, now monstrous and echoing, surrounded them. Just as the shadows threatened to snuff out the flicker of light, a strange whisper slithered into her mind, a chilling truth threatening to peel back the layers of bravery she had built. "Together," she whispered, "we fight together." But what if together wasn't enough? What if the candlelight was all that stood between them and an eternity of darkness? The shadows recoiled momentarily, a flicker of vulnerability in their suffocating embrace. Sarah's heart hammered as she felt the surge of energy from her memories igniting the darkness. "Lucas!" she gasped, her voice wavering with purpose. She could see him now, a distant star shining through the void, fighting against the consuming blackness. But in an instant, the darkness retaliated, the whispering crowd of lost souls returning with a vengeance. "You think your love can save you? You are nothing!" Their voices twisted and coiled around her, thick and suffocating. "No!" Sarah screamed, her fury igniting a spark that briefly illuminated the suffocating dark. "I won't let you take him!" She surged forward, driven by desperation, battling the shadows that threatened to swallow her whole. With each step, she felt Lucas pulling at her, a gentle tug on the invisible bond that tied them. She focused. Their laughter echoed in her mind like a symphony, days spent at the park, birthdays with cake and candles, the scent of freshly baked cookies wafting through their home. "Lucas!" she cried again, the warmth of those memories fueling her fight. If she could just reach him. But just as she pushed against the encroaching shadows, she felt a creeping dread claw at her. The very environment around her shifted, a cold chill brushed against her neck, and she turned, sensing something lurking, something ancient. "Do you feel it?" Benny's voice slithered closer, dripping with malice. "You've only opened the door. The keeper awakens." Suddenly the ground beneath her felt unstable, as if the very foundation of reality was fracturing. The shadows twisted, reshaping themselves into grotesque figures. Faces emerged from the darkness, contorted and twisted in expressions of pain and rage. "Leave us alone!" Sarah screamed, the words tearing from her throat, primal and raw. But the faces only grinned wider, their hollow eyes penetrating her soul. She stumbled backward, wrestling with a new wave of terror. A flash of light flickered in the corner of her vision, a sharper, blinding beam that cut through the dark. It was not Lucas. It was a ghostly figure, a woman draped in tattered white, her face obscured by a curtain of hair. The figure pointed a frail finger at the swirling abyss, whispering a warning, though Sarah could not hear the words above the cacophony. "What are you showing me?" Sarah felt dizzy, her mind racing as she took a hesitant step toward the glow. The moment she did, the shadows writhed in fury, bending and warping to encircle her more tightly. "Run!" the figure mouthed as the shadows surged towards her, ravenous and unyielding. "Run or be consumed!" Clarity pierced through the panic. Sarah spun away, her legs feeling heavy, weighted by the terror. She pushed against the tide of darkness, half instinct, half courage. Vague shapes shot past her like whispers of unresolved pain, and she gritted her teeth, stubbornly focusing on that blinding light. Benny's laughter exploded behind her, echoing through the darkness, sending shivers down her spine. "You think you can escape?" The shadows whipped and crashed around her like a raging storm, intent on dragging her back into the depths of despair. "Lucas!" she shouted again, as if his name could cut through the chaotic noise threatening to pull her under. And then, silence. As she reached out towards the light, an eerie calm fell over the place, a fleeting breath in the storm. In that instant of quiet, the woman's eyes locked with Sarah's, and they were filled with a mixture of sorrow and urgency. "Trust," the figure whispered. But trust what? And just like that, the calm shattered. The shadows erupted, a frenzy of howling winds and frigid cold engulfing her. Every ounce of fear strangled her potential for hope as she fought against the relentless pull of despair. Did she have what it took to truly fight the darkness? Would the light be strong enough to withstand the Keeper's onslaught? The unknown loomed ahead, thick and palpable, clinging to her every step. Was this her courage or just the beginning of an inevitable end? The shadows lunged, a wild mass of despair. Sarah stumbled, catching her breath in frantic gasps. Each exhale felt like surrender, but she couldn't give in. Not now. "Lucas!" Her voice shattered the stillness, ricocheting off the dark walls that closed in from all sides. As she pushed forward, the air grew heavy, pressing down on her like a lead weight. Shadows morphed into tendrils, reaching out, slick and oily, trying to snatch her back. "You're only delaying the inevitable," Benny's voice mocked from the void, chilling her to the bone. But she didn't care about him. She had to focus. With every pounding heartbeat, her resolve crystallized. Bursting through the static of her panic, memories flooded her mind, sweet and fierce like a wildfire against the shadows. Lucas's laugh pierced through the noise, urging her on, lighting a path through the dark. Just as she surged ahead, the darkness thickened, swirling with a furious, growling hunger. Flecks of panic flickered in her chest. Each breath drew icy air that stung her lungs. She could feel the Keeper, an ancient presence awakening, its hunger palpable. Sarah pictured the woman in white again, desolate yet determined. Trust. What did it mean? Who could she trust in this nightmare? "Are you ready to be punished?" the shadows hissed. Faces contorted and twisted through the mist, their hollow eyes boring into her. Each visage a victim, a whisper of pain, desperate to drag her down. Fear screamed at her, clawing at her sanity, but she clenched her fists and pressed on. "Not today!" she roared, pushing through the crowd of tortured souls. They recoiled, as if shocked by her defiance. For a moment she felt their anger falter. The ethereal woman's presence flickered beside her, lending strength, urging her towards the light. But the shadows tightened around her once again, more furious than before. They swirled and crashed against her, threatening to pull her into their abyss. Pain shot through her, a flash of heat in the icy chill surrounding her. She felt her body slowing, limbs heavy with despair. With a wild surge of desperation, she gritted her teeth, forcing herself to keep moving. Her heart raced, a fierce drummer against the cold quiet trying to devour her spirit. "Lucas!" she cried again, her voice raw, a plea forged from the very depths of her being. A flicker of warmth sparked at the back of her mind. Could it be him? The shadows thrashed violently in response, a cacophony of rage erupting from the depths. They propelled her forward, the path illuminated by the flickering memory of his smile. But then the world shifted, fracturing like glass. She stumbled, finding herself in a vast emptiness, a void with no up, no down. The shadows pulsed, the blackness alive, wrapping around her throat like a vice. Benny's laughter echoed sinisterly. "This is your end, Sarah. You cannot escape the Keeper." Panic ripped through her, raw and unrelenting. She struggled against the darkness, fighting for every inch. The woman in white appeared again, more tangible now. "You must choose," she said, her voice barely breaking through the storm. "Trust the light inside you, or let the Keeper claim your soul." Tension coiled in her gut. Could she trust a figure shrouded in fog and sorrow? As icy fingers wrapped tighter around her, the decision felt like a weight, pressing, squeezing the air from her lungs. Then the ground shifted beneath her, the sensation of falling striking her with an urgency that felt all too real. "I choose!" she shouted, though whether it was the darkness or the light guiding her was uncertain. And in that moment of uncertainty, she felt something break within her, a bond, a tether snapping like a fraying rope at the edge of a precipice. What would happen next? Would the Keeper drain her of all hope, or would she find Lucas beyond the shadows? The answer shimmered just out of reach, a haunting question swirling through the darkness as she fell deeper. The void engulfed Sarah, a swirling tempest pulling her into a sea of anguish. The cold pressed against her skin like an icy embrace, clawing at her resolve. But even in the depths of despair, she remembered. Lucas was out there, fighting through the darkness as she was. "Mommy, please, I'm scared!" His voice was fragile, echoing through the void, a thread of innocence caught in the storm. Panic surged hot and fierce within her chest, urging her to push against the shadows tightening around her. "Hold on, Lucas," she shouted, desperation weaving thick chords into her voice. "You are stronger than this. We will find our way back." As she spoke, a warmth spread radiating from her heart, a beacon igniting the dark. Light burst forth as if it had been waiting for her confession, crackling through the shadows. There, shimmering within the haze, she caught glimpses of the joyous moments that had once filled their lives. Laughter at the park, sleepy afternoons cuddled on the couch, every moment stitched together in love. But a deeper darkness responded, a hiss of fury erupting from the shadows that began to coalesce in front of her. Benny's voice cut through the evolving calm, taunting her. "You think hollow memories can save you. Every moment is just a fleeting shadow." "No," her voice carried strength she didn't know she had. "Those are not shadows, they are our love, and we can fight together." Suddenly, a surge of power thrummed at her fingertips, pulsing like a second heartbeat. She focused on it, letting it draw her, amplifying it with every ounce of hope she could muster. She could feel Lucas's fear aligning with her warmth, intertwining into a force that surged through the darkness. The shadows hesitated, swirling uncertainly for the first time. "What have you done?" The question echoed, filled with disbelief, but Sarah felt invincible. "I chose love over fear," she declared, each word reverberating through the void, bursting forth with clarity. "We refuse to be your playthings any longer." With a battle cry to pierce through despair, she pushed through the thrumming darkness, the light bursting through her heart, a flash bright enough to overshadow even the deepest shadows. "Lucas!" she cried again, and he answered, the dim outline near her beginning to shimmer with familiarity. "Mommy!" His voice lifted with newfound strength as the shadows quivered around him. "I'm coming back!" The bond between them pulsed, electrifying the air, giving Sarah strength she never knew existed. She surged forward, grasping for the flicker of her son, tearing through the web of shadow that had held him tight. "Together, Lucas! We are stronger than this darkness." And in that moment, a burst of light erupted like the sun breaking dawn, illuminating the depths of the void, scattering the shadows in every direction. The laughter of the lost children wavered, mixing with cries of outrage as they felt the power of Sarah's love ripple through the air. Then, in the center of it all, she saw him, Lucas, his small frame flickering in the light. Hope swelled within her, clawing against the tightness of despair. "Take my hand," she shouted as she reached out, feeling the connection ignite between them like fireworks lighting the night sky. Hand in hand, they surged through the darkness, fueled by belief and a bond strengthened through courage, their laughter becoming a weapon, slicing through the shadows that had long claimed this realm. "No, you will not escape!" Benny roared, but his anger was swallowed by their light, the space around them breathing with energy that trembled and rippled like waves. The faces of the haunting past flickered uncertainly, battling against the brightness, their cries fading into whispers. "Let's go home," Sarah urged Lucas as they pushed through the maelstrom, the shadows swirling faster, threatening to reclaim what they'd lost. Together, they leaped across the final threshold into bright daylight, Light washed over them, warm and inviting. They stood in their cozy living room. Sweet smells wafted in from the kitchen, and beneath it all, there was laughter. Laughter from Lucas, who was safe and sound by her side. "Mommy!" he exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with joy. Sarah threw her arms around him, relief washing over her like a wave. Still trembling, she held him tightly, feeling his warmth seep back into her bones. It was not a dream. They were home. But in the back of her mind, she sensed a lingering thread, a memory of shadows whispering in the corners of her mind. She'd faced the darkness and won, but a part of her would always remember the Keeper, and how close they had come to losing it all. As the days turned to weeks, the house felt lighter, the shadows retreating to the edges of consciousness. Sarah transformed that vintage home into a sanctuary of light and laughter, painting over the remnants of despair with colors alive. And on particularly quiet nights, when the air grew thick with stillness, she whispered a quiet promise to the darkness. "You will not take my son. We will always choose love." So every time she felt the shadows creep in, she held Lucas closer, wrapped him in warmth, and together they illuminated their world, ensuring the past would never again claim what was rightfully theirs. As the sun set on the horizon, casting a golden glow through their windows, Sarah smiled. Life was not just about confronting shadows, but embracing the light. And they would do so, together. Now, if you enjoyed this story and want to hear more spine-tingling tales, make sure you subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive story. Smash that like button now. It really helps with the algorithm and shows your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about how they beat the darkness. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans like you know how important it is to spread the word.